Saul, the king of Israel, was consumed by envy.
David, a young shepherd, had slain Goliath. The people hailed him as a hero.
Saul seethed. His heart twisted with jealousy. He saw David's rising popularity as a threat.
My grip on power feels loose. I must eliminate the threat.
One day, in a fit of rage, Saul hurled a spear at David. David dodged it, narrowly escaping death.
My intentions are clear. I want David dead.
The king's fear festered. His paranoia grew. He ordered his men to kill David. Jonathan, Saul's son, was David's closest friend. He was known for his unwavering loyalty.
Father, this is unjust. David has been loyal to you. He saved Israel from Goliath.
Jonathan confronted Saul. He pleaded for David's life.
All right, I promise to spare David.
But Jonathan knew his father's volatile nature. The danger was far from over.
Jonathan has warned me. I must flee. My life is in constant danger.
David, warned by Jonathan, fled into the night. His heart pounded with fear and uncertainty. David, on the run, sought refuge in the wilderness. He was a man marked by destiny, yet hunted by the very king he once served. The wilderness became his sanctuary, a place where he could gather his thoughts and plan his next move. The dense forests and rugged terrains provided him with the cover he needed to stay one step ahead of his pursuers. He gathered a band of loyal followers. These men, drawn to David's charisma and leadership, chose to stand by him despite the dangers. They were a motley crew, united by their loyalty to David and their shared desire for freedom from Saul's tyranny. Together, they formed a tight-knit group, moving stealthily through the wilderness, always on the lookout for Saul's soldiers.
We live as outlaws, constantly on the move. Every day is a new challenge, a new test of our resolve. We have learned to live off the land, to find shelter in the most unlikely places. We are always vigilant, always ready to move at a moment's notice.
Saul, obsessed, relentlessly pursued David. His obsession with capturing David consumed him, driving him to the brink of madness. He saw David as a threat to his throne, a rival who had to be eliminated at all costs. Saul's soldiers, driven by their king's fervor, scoured the land, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to find David. He led his army on countless expeditions, determined to capture and kill his perceived rival. The soldiers, weary from the constant pursuit, followed Saul with a mix of fear and loyalty. They knew that failure was not an option, that Saul's wrath would be swift and unforgiving if they did not succeed.
I will not rest until David is dead. His very existence is a threat to my reign. I cannot allow him to live, to gather more followers and challenge my authority. I will hunt him down, no matter the cost.
Yet, fate had other plans. David, through cunning and bravery, managed to evade Saul's clutches time and again. He used the terrain to his advantage, setting traps and ambushes to throw Saul's soldiers off his trail. His knowledge of the wilderness, combined with his strategic mind, allowed him to stay one step ahead of his pursuers. He even spared Saul's life on 2 occasions. Despite having the opportunity to kill Saul and end his pursuit, David chose mercy over vengeance. He believed that taking Saul's life would only perpetuate the cycle of violence and hatred. Instead, he hoped that his acts of mercy would show Saul the futility of his obsession.
I have spared his life. Perhaps now he will see reason. Perhaps he will understand that I do not seek his throne, that I only wish to live in peace. I hope that my actions will make him see the error of his ways.
David's actions softened Saul's heart, if only temporarily. For a brief moment, Saul saw the futility of his pursuit, the senselessness of his hatred. He realized that David was not his enemy, but a man trying to survive in a world that had turned against him.
David, you have shown mercy. I regret my actions. I see now that my obsession has blinded me, that I have been chasing shadows. I am sorry for the pain I have caused you.
But the respite was short-lived. Saul's remorse was fleeting, and his obsession soon returned. The cycle of pursuit and evasion continued, a relentless dance of survival and desperation. David knew that as long as Saul lived, he would never truly be free. The wilderness, once his sanctuary, had become his prison. Saul's madness returned. He again saw David as a threat, The king's paranoia consumed him.
I must capture David. He cannot be allowed to live.
He resumed his relentless pursuit of David. David, weary of running, sought refuge in the Philistine territory.
I have no choice. I must make a strategic alliance even with the enemy.
Saul, enraged, viewed this as the ultimate betrayal.
This is the final straw. I will gather my forces and crush David once and for all.
David, caught between two enemies, faced an impossible situation. His life hung precariously in the balance.
I must prepare for the inevitable clash.
He prepared for the inevitable clash. Michal, Saul's daughter and David's wife, played a crucial role in his escape. She learned of Saul's plan to kill David.
I knew I had to act quickly.
She devised a daring plan. Michal lowered David from her window using a rope.
Thank you, Michal. Your quick thinking has saved my life.
David escaped into the night, once again evading Saul's grasp. Michal's quick thinking and bravery saved David's life. She demonstrated unwavering loyalty to her husband, defying her own father.
How could you betray me, Michal?
Saul, furious at his daughter's betrayal, disowned Michal. He married her to another man. But Michal's actions bought David precious time. David, constantly on the run, was a man who faced relentless pursuit from King Saul. His life was a series of narrow escapes and desperate flights. Each day brought new challenges and dangers, pushing him to the brink of exhaustion. Yet amidst this turmoil, David found a place of refuge. He sought refuge in the cave of Adullam, a hidden sanctuary nestled in the rugged terrain. This cave was not just a physical shelter, but a place where he could gather his thoughts and plan his next move. It was a place where he could find a moment of peace in the midst of chaos. It became a sanctuary for him and his loyal followers. These men were not just followers, they were his friends, his confidants, and his brothers in arms. They shared his hardships and his dreams. In the dim light of the cave, they found solace in each other's company. They found strength in their shared hardship. The cave echoed with their stories of struggle and survival. Each man brought his own tale of woe, but together they forged a bond that was unbreakable. Their shared experiences became the foundation of their unity.
We must stand together. In this cave, we are more than just fugitives. We are a family, bound by our common cause and our shared destiny. Our unity is our strength, and our resolve is our weapon. Our hardships will make us stronger. Each challenge we face is a test of our character and our commitment. We will emerge from this cave not as broken men, but as warriors ready to fight for our freedom and our future.
Word spread throughout Israel of David's plight. His story resonated with many who were also suffering under the oppressive rule of King Saul. People began to see David not just as a fugitive, but as a beacon of hope. People flocked to join him, the disenfranchised, the indebted, and those seeking adventure. They came from all walks of life, drawn by the promise of a new beginning and the chance to be part of something greater than themselves. David became a symbol of hope for the oppressed. He listened to their grievances, offered them protection, and gave them a sense of purpose. In the darkness of the cave, he became a light that guided them through their darkest hours. He listened to their grievances, offered them protection, and trained them to fight. He taught them the skills they needed to survive and to stand up against their oppressors. Under his leadership, they transformed from a group of desperate men into a formidable force and trained them to fight. They practiced day and night, honing their skills and preparing for the battles that lay ahead. The cave became their training ground, their sanctuary, and their home.
You are no longer alone. In this cave, we have found each other, and together we will find our purpose. We will fight for our freedom, for our families, and for our future. We are not just survivors, we are warriors. Together, we will find our purpose. Our journey is just beginning, and our destiny is in our hands. We will face many challenges, but we will overcome them together. Our unity is our strength, and our resolve is our weapon.
The cave of Adullam transformed David. It was here that he found his true calling and his true strength. He was no longer just a fugitive, he was a leader, a warrior, and a symbol of hope for all who followed him. He was no longer just a fugitive. He had become a leader, a beacon of hope and a symbol of resistance against oppression. His journey was far from over, but in the cave of Adullam, he found the strength and the resolve to continue his fight. He was a leader, uniting people under a common cause. The cave of Adullam was not just a refuge, it was the birthplace of a movement that would change the course of history. David and his followers would go on to achieve great things, but it all began in the humble sanctuary of the cave. Saul, consumed by his pursuit of David, neglected his duties as king. He became a shadow of his former self, driven by paranoia and rage. The Philistines, sensing Saul's weakness, prepared to attack Israel. They saw an opportunity to conquer their weakened enemy.
How could I have been so blind?
Saul, facing an enemy invasion, realized the gravity of his situation. He had been blinded by his obsession with David. He had forgotten his true purpose.
Why has God forsaken me?
He desperately sought guidance, but God no longer answered his prayers. He had turned his back on the divine. He was lost in his own darkness. Saul, in a last-ditch effort to regain his sanity, sought the help of a necromancer. His mind was plagued by fear and uncertainty, and he felt the weight of his decisions bearing down on him. Desperation drove him to seek answers from beyond the grave. He wanted to communicate with the prophet Samuel, who had died. Saul believed that only Samuel could provide the guidance he so desperately needed. The kingdom was in turmoil, and Saul's grip on power was slipping. The witch summoned Samuel's spirit, the air grew cold, and a sense of foreboding filled the room. The ghostly figure of Samuel emerged, his presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying.
"Why have you disturbed me, Saul?" Samuel's voice echoed with a mix of anger and sorrow, as if he had been pulled from a place of peace.
Samuel, angered by Saul's actions, delivered a chilling prophecy. His words were like daggers, piercing Saul's already troubled heart. The prophecy was not just a warning, but a declaration of what was to come. He foretold Saul's downfall and the rise of David. The young shepherd boy, David, was destined to take Saul's place. This revelation struck fear into Saul's heart as he realized the inevitability of his fate.
"Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me." Samuel's words were final and absolute, leaving no room for hope or redemption. The Lord will deliver Israel into the hands of the Philistines. The prophecy was clear. The battle would be lost, and Saul's reign would come to a tragic end.
Saul, filled with dread, received a glimpse of his own demise. The vision of his future was bleak, and the weight of his past actions pressed heavily upon him. He realized the extent of his mistakes. The choices he had made, driven by jealousy and fear, had led him to this moment of reckoning. But it was too late for redemption. The path he had chosen was irreversible, and the consequences were now unavoidable. He had allowed jealousy to consume him, leading him down a path of destruction. His envy of David's rising popularity had clouded his judgment and driven him to acts of madness.
What have I done? Saul's voice was filled with anguish and regret as he grappled with the reality of his situation.
He had lost his kingdom, his family, and his connection to God. The once mighty king was now a broken man, facing the consequences of his actions. The divine touch he had once felt was now a distant memory, replaced by the cold reality of his downfall.